Welcome back, you beautiful anomaly. You walking contradiction. You impossible equation they keep trying to solve with the wrong formula. Have you noticed it? The silence feels colder. The smiles look rehearsed. The people who once stood beside you now study you like strangers. It hurts because you expected loyalty where comfort once lived. But growth has a cruel habit. It exposes every hidden motive. The painful truth is that not everyone celebrates the person you're becoming. Some fear your confidence because it reminds them of their excuses. Today, you'll uncover why your family changed and why your greatest power is refusing to change yourself. Most people believe relationships change because of arguments, betrayal, or distance. But the deepest changes often happen in complete silence. They begin the moment you stop asking for permission to become someone greater. The version of you that kept everyone comfortable slowly disappears, and with it goes the illusion that you will always stay the same. That transformation is what unsettles people the most. It is not your success alone that disturbs them. It is the reminder that change is possible, and they chose not to pursue it. Every family unknowingly creates invisible roles. Someone is expected to be the peacemaker. Someone is expected to be the quiet one. Someone becomes the problem solver, while another is labeled the dreamer or the failure. These roles are repeated for years, until they feel permanent. Then one day, you decide to rewrite your identity. You stop apologizing for existing. You begin protecting your time. You speak with confidence instead of hesitation. Suddenly, the people who were comfortable with the old version of you struggle to recognize the new one. That confusion often looks like criticism. It sounds like jokes that cut deeper than laughter. It appears as cold conversations, unexpected distance, or endless reminders of who you used to be. They keep bringing up your past because your past is the only version of you they still know how to control. The stronger you become, the more they search for memories that make you feel small again. Growth creates a mirror that nobody asked to look into. Your discipline exposes their excuses. Your confidence highlights their doubts. Your peace reveals their chaos. Without saying a single word, your life begins asking uncomfortable questions. If you can heal, why haven't they? If you can change your habits, why are they still trapped in the same patterns? If you can chase your dreams despite fear, what happened to theirs? Those silent questions become impossible to ignore. The painful truth is that people sometimes mistake your evolution for rejection. They think your new boundaries mean you believe you are better than them. They confuse self-respect with arrogance. They interpret your silence as pride because they were used to having unlimited access to your emotions. When you stop reacting to every opinion, they assume you no longer care. In reality, you simply learn that peace is more valuable than endless approval. There is another truth that many avoid because it is uncomfortable. Familiarity often creates expectations that have nothing to do with love. Some family members become attached to the version of you that needed them, depended on them, or constantly sought their validation. The moment you become emotionally independent, the balance shifts. They no longer feel the same influence over your decisions, and that loss of control can appear as disappointment, frustration, or emotional distance. This does not automatically make them villains. Many are simply responding from fear. Human beings naturally resist change, especially when that change happens inside someone they believed they fully understood. Watching you transform forces them to question everything they assumed about you. Some adapt with love, others resist with criticism. The response says more about their emotional readiness than it does about your worth. The greatest mistake you can make is shrinking yourself to restore everyone's comfort. Pretending to be weaker than you are may temporarily rebuild familiar patterns, but it slowly destroys your confidence. Every time you hide your growth to protect someone else's insecurity, You silently betray the person you fought so hard to become. That price is too expensive because it requires sacrificing your future to preserve someone else's illusion. Real growth always carries a cost. Sometimes that cost is misunderstanding. Sometimes it is loneliness. Sometimes it is realizing that the people you expected to celebrate your progress are the very ones struggling to accept it. Yet this season also reveals something priceless. It shows you who loves your happiness more than their comfort. Those are the people who deserve a permanent place in your journey because they celebrate your evolution instead of fearing it. From the moment you were young, expectations were placed on your shoulders long before you understood what they meant. Some were spoken openly, while others were never said aloud, but were understood through looks, reactions, and repeated patterns. You were expected to behave a certain way, think a certain way, dream within certain limits, and make choices that kept everyone comfortable. At first, it felt normal because you had never experienced anything different. You believed love and acceptance were earned by meeting those expectations, even when they required you to ignore your own voice. Over time, something changed inside you. You began asking questions instead of blindly following traditions. You started listening to your instincts instead of everyone's opinions. You realized that living a life designed by other people would eventually leave you empty, regardless of how much approval you received. That realization became the beginning of your transformation. The moment you decided to think independently, the invisible agreement you had, unknowingly signed with everyone around you, began to fall apart. People often become comfortable with predictability. They know how to respond to the version of you that always says yes, always apologizes first, always sacrifices personal goals, and always puts everyone else's happiness ahead of your own. That version is easy to manage because it rarely creates conflict. But when you stop agreeing just to keep the peace, everything changes. Suddenly, your decisions become selfish. Your confidence becomes attitude. Your independence becomes disrespect. Nothing about your character has become worse. Only the amount of control others once had over your choices has disappeared. This shift is difficult for many families because expectations often become part of their identity. They convince themselves that their way is the only correct way, and anyone who chooses differently must be making a mistake. Instead of asking why you've changed, they focus on convincing you to return to who you were. They remind you of old traditions, old habits, and old responsibilities, hoping guilt will succeed where authority no longer can. Their words may sound caring, but beneath them often hides the fear of losing the version of you they understood best. One of the hardest lessons to accept is that disappointing someone's expectations does not automatically mean you have done something wrong. There is a huge difference between hurting people through cruelty and upsetting them because you refuse to abandon your purpose. Those two situations are not the same. Many people confuse them because they benefit when you carry unnecessary guilt. If every decision requires everyone else's approval, you never truly own your life. You simply become a character acting in someone else's story. Notice how people react when your choices no longer revolve around pleasing them. They may question your motives, criticize your ambitions, or suggest you've forgotten where you came from. These comments are rarely about your destination. They are about their discomfort with losing influence over your direction. They remember the version of you that constantly sought reassurance, and they struggle to accept the person who now trusts their own judgment. Freedom always looks dangerous to those who have built their identity around control. The moment you stop asking for permission to chase your dreams, set your boundaries, or define success on your own terms, you become unpredictable. That unpredictability creates anxiety in people who expected your future to mirror their expectations. Instead of celebrating your courage, they may interpret your independence as rebellion because it challenges the familiar structure they have always relied on. The painful irony is that many families genuinely believe they are protecting you. Their advice is often shaped by fear, past disappointments, or experiences that taught them to avoid risk. They are not always trying to destroy your dreams. Sometimes they simply cannot imagine a future beyond the limits they accepted for themselves. Their caution becomes your cage if you allow it. Their fears become your fears if you inherit them without question. There comes a defining moment when you realize that peace cannot be built on constant self-betrayal. You cannot spend your entire life editing your personality to match someone else's expectations. You cannot silence your potential just because your growth makes others uncomfortable. Respecting your family does not require abandoning yourself. Loving people does not require surrendering your identity. The strongest version of you is not the one who earns the loudest applause from others, but the one who can stand alone, make difficult decisions with integrity, and continue walking forward, even when the people closest to you struggle. To understand why you refuse to let their expectations become the limits of your destiny. There comes a moment in every person's life when one simple word begins to change everything. That word is no. It is small, but it carries the weight of self-respect. For years, you may have believed that saying yes made you a good son, a good daughter, a good sibling, or simply a good person. You answered every call, solved every problem, accepted every criticism, and carried burdens that were never yours to begin with. You thought sacrificing your peace would earn lasting appreciation. Instead, it often created an expectation that your kindness had no limits. The first time you establish a boundary, people rarely applaud. They question it, they challenge it, they test it. The version of you they became accustomed to suddenly disappears, and they do not know how to respond. They wonder why you have changed, but the truth is that you have finally stopped abandoning yourself to make everyone else comfortable. What they call distance is often the healthy space you should have created years ago. Boundaries have a remarkable ability to reveal intentions that words cannot hide. As long as you constantly give without hesitation, everyone appears supportive. But the moment you refuse to be available every second of every day, different sides of people begin to emerge. Some respect your decision without making you feel guilty. Others react with anger, sarcasm, or emotional pressure. That reaction tells you everything you need to know. People who genuinely care about you may not always understand your boundaries immediately, but they will eventually respect them. Those who only benefited from your lack of boundaries often become the loudest critics. It is painful because family is supposed to be the place where acceptance feels unconditional. Yet, even within families, unhealthy patterns can exist for years without being questioned. One person becomes responsible for fixing everyone's emotional problems. Another becomes the one expected to sacrifice every personal goal for the sake of harmony. These roles become so familiar that nobody notices how unfair they truly are. The moment someone steps out of that role, the system resists. Not because the boundary is wrong, but because the old pattern has been interrupted. Many people mistake boundaries for punishment. They think you are trying to push them away when, in reality, you are protecting what remains of your emotional strength. A boundary is not built out of hatred. It is built out of wisdom gained from repeated disappointment. It is the decision to stop allowing behaviors that slowly destroy your confidence, your peace, and your identity. Love without boundaries often becomes exhaustion disguised as loyalty. One of the greatest illusions is believing that your value depends on how much you can endure. Society sometimes praises those who constantly sacrifice themselves, but endless sacrifice without respect creates resentment. You are not stronger because you tolerate endless disrespect. You are stronger because you finally recognize that your peace deserves protection. Strength is not measured by how much pain you can absorb. It is measured by your courage to refuse unnecessary pain altogether. Watch carefully what happens after you establish healthy limits. The people who truly love you begin adjusting. They may ask questions, they may need time, but eventually they recognize your right to protect your well-being. Others, however, become frustrated because your boundaries remove the advantages they once enjoyed. They may accuse you of changing, becoming cold, or forgetting your roots. These accusations often reveal more about their expectations than your character. The hardest boundary to maintain is the one that protects your emotional energy. Physical distance is easy compared to emotional discipline. There will be moments when guilt whispers that you should go back to the old version of yourself. You will remember the comfort of pleasing everyone, even if it came at the cost of your own happiness. That temptation is powerful because familiarity always feels safer than transformation. But every time you ignore your own limits to satisfy others, you teach them that your needs can always come last. Your boundaries also transform the way you see yourself. Instead of measuring your worth by other people's approval, you begin measuring it by your integrity. You stop chasing acceptance from those who refuse to respect your values. You become less interested in winning every argument and more committed to protecting your peace. That shift changes everything because your confidence no longer depends on someone else's opinion. It grows from the quiet certainty that you have finally chosen yourself without becoming cruel, selfish, or heartless. The painful truth is that not everyone will celebrate the healthier version of you. Some people were attached to the version that constantly overextended itself, apologized for existing, and accepted treatment that should never have been tolerated. When that version disappears, they may claim you have become someone different. They are right. You have become someone who understands that love and respect are meant to exist together, that kindness does not require self-destruction, and that the strongest relationships are never threatened by honest boundaries, because genuine respect has nothing to fear from a person who finally knows their own worth. Pain has a strange way of introducing you to the strongest version of yourself. While everyone dreams about a life filled with comfort, very few realize that comfort rarely creates unshakable character. The deepest lessons are often hidden inside disappointment, rejection, and the quiet moments when the people you trusted most seem to become strangers. Family pain is different from every other kind of pain because it reaches places that no enemy ever could. It forces you to question your value, your identity, and sometimes even your purpose. But hidden beneath that heartbreak is an opportunity that many people never recognize. The easiest response is bitterness. It feels natural to replay every painful conversation, every unfair judgment, every broken promise, and every moment you felt abandoned. Your mind convinces you that holding on to anger will somehow protect you from being hurt again. In reality, bitterness does the opposite. It chains you to the very people who wounded you. Every day you carry resentment. They continue occupying space inside your thoughts without asking for permission. They become the invisible authors of your emotions. That is not freedom. That is another form of captivity. Strength begins the moment you stop asking why everything happened to you and start asking what this experience is preparing you for. That single shift changes your perspective completely. Instead of viewing yourself as someone defeated by painful relationships, you begin seeing yourself as someone being refined by them. Fire does not destroy gold. It reveals it. Pressure does not create weakness. It exposes where strength has been waiting all along. There is an important difference between forgiving and forgetting. Forgetting ignores reality. Forgiveness accepts reality without allowing it to poison your future. You do not forgive because someone earned another chance. You forgive because your peace is too valuable to remain connected to yesterday's wounds. Carrying emotional weight for years only slows your own journey. The people who hurt you may continue living their lives, while you remain trapped in memories that cannot be changed. Releasing that burden is not surrender. It is one of the greatest demonstrations of personal power. Your greatest revenge is never proving someone wrong through arguments. It is building a life so grounded in purpose that their opinions lose the ability to control your emotions. Every goal you achieve, every habit you improve, every moment of discipline becomes another brick in the foundation of the person you are becoming. Instead of allowing pain to define your identity, you allow it to sharpen your focus. Every setback becomes training. Every disappointment becomes wisdom. Every betrayal becomes another reminder to place your confidence in your own character rather than temporary approval. One of the most dangerous habits is waiting for family to finally understand you before giving yourself permission to move forward. That day may never come. Some people will never fully recognize your growth because accepting it would require admitting they misunderstood you all along. If your progress depends on their validation, your future remains in someone else's hands. Real confidence appears when you continue building your life, whether applause comes or not. You also begin realizing that your family's story does not have to become your personal destiny. Patterns can end with you. If criticism was passed from one generation to another, you can become the one who chooses encouragement. If fear controlled every important decision before you, you can become the one who acts with courage. If emotional wounds were ignored for decades, you can become the one who heals instead of passing them to the next generation. Breaking unhealthy cycles requires enormous strength because it demands that you become different before anyone else is willing to. There will be moments when loneliness whispers that returning to old patterns would be easier. You will remember the temporary comfort of pretending everything was fine. But temporary comfort often steals permanent growth. Every difficult choice you make today becomes evidence that your future matters more than familiar pain. Every boundary you maintain, every healthy habit you protect, and every dream you continue chasing becomes proof that your past no longer has authority over your future. Eventually, something remarkable happens. The pain that once felt unbearable begins serving a different purpose. It no longer controls your emotions. It becomes part of your wisdom. Instead of reacting from old wounds, you respond with clarity. Instead of seeking revenge, you seek peace. Instead of proving your worth to people who refuse to see it, you invest your energy in becoming the person you were always capable of becoming. The painful truth about your family may never completely disappear, but neither will the strength it forced you to discover. The chapter that once looked like the end of your story quietly becomes the beginning of a life built on resilience, self-respect, unwavering purpose, and the unshakable belief that no amount of rejection can stop a person who has finally decided to transform every scar into unstoppable inner strength.